Welcome back to this Moneycontrol live stream. You're watching Closing Bell with me, Nandita Khemka, and my colleague.
Hello there, I am Yatin Mota.
Yeah, then one would have thought that we would see a knee-jerk reaction in the market today, in response to the 25% tariff announced on auto imports by the US president. And we did start the day on the back foot, but we saw a very strong recovery kicking in, right? Because the Nifty reclaimed that 23,600 mark. In fact, out of a 5 series losing streak.
Yes.
And uh, true to its seasonality, the gains that we've seen in the March series, it totals somewhere around 5% on the
Yes.
Nifty.
Yes.
Yatin, biggest gain in a series since September
Correct.
2024. So yes, a good series. A series that will go down well because even FIIs have turned buyers in this
Mm.
series. In fact, last few sessions we've seen FII remaining net buyers, and that too ahead of the April 2 deadline when they're aware of the reciprocal tariff that will
True.
be imposed, but still they have kept the faith in India, within the emerging market basket. But talking about today's action in particular, of course, 23,600 back on the charts. Broader markets also staged a good recovery from opening lows. The Nifty small cap index outperformed with gains of somewhere around 7/10% or thereabouts. If you look at the breadth, it has improved, although it was skewed in favor of losers, but still even Stevens almost 1:1. Autos, of course, that was anticipated, and it
Yes.
did see quite a bit of a drop, 1% or in excess of 1% on the auto pack. Even pharma, I think, in anticipation of tariffs, autos was the sector that saw tariffs, but Trump has also hinted time and again that he will impose tariff on
Yes.
pharma as well. So I think because of that, we saw some rub-off effect on pharma as well. That index was among the top laggards today. But what turned the complexion of the market was buying in financials, Yatin.
Mm.
Bank Nifty, back around that 51,500 mark. PSU banks also saw good traction, almost 1.5% gain on the PSU bank index. Oil and gas, FMCG were some of the other sectors that did well. In terms of individual movers, autos were down, but Hero Moto
Mm.
was the top Nifty gainer today. I think it's insulated from this tariff
Yes.
impact, which is why the stock was among the top gainers on the index. Bajaj Finserv continues to gain. IndusInd Bank out of FNO ban today,
Mm.
and the stock was among gainers, staged a good comeback. Adani stocks did well, and HDFC Life was also doing well. Trent, on the back of a positive report from Macquarie, was among the gainers. On the laggards or losers front, of course, Tata Motors, that stock, will be the biggest loser of this
Yes.
tariff impact, and of course, that was reflecting the stock price as well. Aside of that, Sun Pharma, Eicher Motors as well, Kotak Bank, Airtel, these were some of the other laggards. But Yatin, from the
Mm.
broader end of the markets, one stock that caught my eye was Capri Global.
Yes.
Tumbled 28% from the day's high today. I mean,
Mm.
I don't know if there was any trigger or not, but that was one of the top laggards.
And more importantly, Capri Global not a liquid stock.
Hmm.
So probably we have seen aggressive buy sell which has come in for the stock.
Hmm.
But the mid cap end of the market quite good. In fact, the small cap index was up more than 1%. Mid cap index almost 0.5% higher. Advanced decline ratio on the National Stock Exchange was almost 3:2. When it comes to PSU stocks, there is buying emerging again. BEML today 14% higher for that stock. First Source Solutions, Adani Energy Solutions, and in general, the Adani Group stocks with Adani Enterprises, Adani Power, Adani Energy Solutions, all of those stocks were doing well, including Adani Green. So, the entire Adani Group stocks were buzzing in trade. Obviously, stocks like Sundaram Finance, Grindwell Norton, Sona Comstar are witnessing some profit taking. Uh, Obviously, we'll talk about the auto stocks and how tariffs impact later in the show. But clearly, the overall market has been quite strong. In fact, if I talk about the FNO, gainers, top two companies were Adani Group companies. Adani Energy Solution, that stock was 9% higher. Adani Green up 6%. Also, what did well, post announcing the board meeting for bonus on March 30, BSC, that stock has gained 5%. GAIL and Bank of Baroda, the PSUs, which also gained 4 to 5% in trade.
Yes, that was the texture when it comes to the broader end of the markets, and those were the movers and shakers. But Yatin, the top story of the day was the 25% tariff
Yes.
announced on auto imports. Of
Mm.
course, stocks like Tata Motors and Eicher Motors,
Mhm.
felt the impact. But there are some auto part makers also,
Yes.
the likes of Sona, BLW.
Mm.
You have Bharat Forge as
Mhm.
well. You have Samvardhana, Motherson. All of these stocks will be impacted. Take us through how these companies really get impacted. What kind of exposure do they really have to the US market?
So, President Trump has been talking about the auto tariffs
Hmm.
for quite some time. He's firmed up those plans. That is
Hmm.
the reason why there was a big reaction in the market today. He's talking about a firm 25% tariff on any kind of auto imports that happen in the US markets. Now, US is a very large market for automotive businesses, be it auto companies, manufacturing side, and also the component supply side. Now, if you talk about Tata Motors, one of the most impacted companies, because 33% or broadly one third of their sales from JLR come from the US markets. They don't have a manufacturing base in the US. On a consolidated basis, analysts do expect that 20% of their sales value wise would be coming in from the US market. So that is the kind of large impact that could be seen once these tariffs come into place. Samvardhan Motherson, again, they have a plant in the US, but, Mexico is where they have done the new capex. They supply a lot of parts to auto companies in the European Union, which then in turn supply to the US markets. So any kind of a slowdown in auto sales could impact this business also. Currently, only 6 to 7% of the revenue come directly from the US market. Eicher Motors US sales is nearly 2% for Royal Enfield, but realizations are good. Probably the reason why Eicher Motors was one of the top losers in the Nifty today. Market probably thinks that the impact could be higher. Auto component manufacturers like Bharat Forge, Ramkrishna Forging, they supply a lot of forging components to the oil and gas segment. We don't know the entire impact, but if you look at the North American sales, Bharat Forge gets 40% of their sales from the American subcontinent, and also Ramkrishna Forging, 26% of the standalone sales comes in from the North American markets, especially the export from the Mexican markets. Also, Balkrishna Industries, they have a 17% revenue contribution from the US markets, wherein they export high value tire items, as well as Sona BLW, one of the largest vendor to Tesla, but 43% of their sales comes in from the US market. So it is not clear if Trump exempts few companies, what are the conditions, but is all of these stocks in trade were down anywhere between 5 to 8%.
That's true, Yatin. And these tariffs are here to stay throughout Trump's tenure.
Hmm.
So it's at least 4 years. And they come into effect from the 2nd of April,
April,
aside of the
yes.
other reciprocal tariffs that, of course, he's been hinting at. Although he said he'll be lenient, but who knows? The headlines
What
keep
happens?
changing every day. So every day you wake up and you have a new headline to contend with.
Absolutely.
But, in terms of the future trajectory for Tata Motors, that seems to be, or that would be the most impacted due to the tariffs, given the fact that JLR sales like constitute around 33%, as you said. But Morgan Stanley has raised an alarm, of course, warning of a potential earnings hit to JLR. Of course, according to Morgan Stanley, JLR now has three options in front of it, three medium term options, passing the cost to consumers. But the problem is that it may dent demand, and if demand gets hurt, then not just the margins but even sales will take a setback. So that option is also there, but that will prove to be negative for the company. Cutting expenses, that happens over time. It's not something that it can do immediately. And then the third option is absorbing the hit. Now, if it absorbs this tariff burden, operating margins, according to Morgan Stanley, may take a 200 basis point hit, and then it could also pose a downside risk to the firm's 8.3% EBIT estimate for FY26. Of course, JLR may be forced to consider setting up a plant in the US, as you mentioned, but of course, that's also, that's something that will take time to materialize, really. JLR vehicles sold in the US are primarily manufactured in the UK and other international facilities, all of which will now, of course, attract a 25% tariff. In the third quarter as well, the automaker's performance was weighed down by weaker margins, subdued JLR volumes, but it did see a sequential improvement. But even in the quarter gone by, the EBITDA margin contracted by 200 basis points or thereabouts. So yes, earnings wise, things are not looking very pretty for Tata Motors. In fact, I was talking to Nirav Karkera of Wisdom in the morning, and I asked him, that we've seen quite a bit of a drubbing when it comes to the stock price of Tata Motors. Yatin, is all this bad news already in the price, or can we see more pain? He said that okay, it is near the floor right now, but there could be some more pain. Perhaps the stock could even slip below its 52-week low of 606 or thereabouts. Yatin.
Possible, and Tata Motors, the kind of sensitivity that they have, Plus, talks of the tariff impacting US growth. They might be in a temporary recession.
Hmm.
It might also, get the EU into recession or slower growth mode, which
Hmm.
would clearly impact the, luxury car sales. China obviously has been a flattish market so far for Tata Motors. They were probably betting on the EU markets or the US markets for bulk of the business. So let's see how really does this tariff for and the Trump's tantrum,
Hmm.
beg your pardon, impacts the sales
Hmm.
for Tata Motors GLR entity.
Yes, and I'm sure we'll have more of those tantrums before the April 2nd deadline. April 2nd is the Liberation Day in the US, and
Yeah.
for us also it's the D-Day, so to say. But the other stock that was in focus or that has been in focus in the recent past is Trent. Of course, the stock has seen quite a lot of correction from its 2024 highs, Yatin. But there are certain brokerages who have kept the faith in the stock, and Macquarie is the latest one. Remember, Goldman Sachs had said that the
Yes.
weakness in
Yes.
Trent is an opportunity to buy, and today we have a report from Macquarie where they have initiated coverage with an outperform call, and the target price is 30% higher than where the stock was yesterday. 7,000 rupees, that's the target price on a Trent by Macquarie. Now, Macquarie believes that this company, the Tata Group company, is India's leading fashion retailer in the value to mid premium segment in terms of growth, return profile, as well as inventory turnover. And, Macquarie believes that this growth is sustainable. In fact, it has said that, the company has a well structured supply chain that allows it to quickly introduce new fashion styles in tandem with the current trends. And this agility also keeps investors, not investors, customers engaged, and it also drives sales for the company. Also, the fact that the new stores that the company launches, it's also through the franchisee route, and this will support profitability going forward as well. Aside of that, it also believes that the company is positioned as a play on India's growing discretionary spending in the fashion space, and also boasts of Asia's best retailing metrics. Kotak Institutional, however, has a reduced rating on the stock, the price target of 5,150, because it sees pressure on its throughput. So, street is divided. Certain brokerages believe that the strong or solid run that the stock has seen may have come to an end for now, but certain other brokerages believe that there is still a lot of up move to come in the stock price as well. And of course, Macquarie is one of them. If you look at the stock performance, Yatin, on a YTD basis, it's still down 20-25% or so. But remember, in 2024 it was one of the showstopper
Yes.
stocks. But if you look at the last 1 month performance, it has staged an okayish kind of a recovery, a 10% up move over the last 1 month.
Yes, and Trent is one of those quality companies which has maintained margins, growth. Obviously, on the valuation front, things with this kind of a management pedigree and growth profile do remain expensive, and hence the volatility, in the last 3-4 months. But as you're mentioning, most of the brokerages have been having a positive outlook, and probably are advising clients to buy on declines.
That's true, Yatin. But one other stock that's on my list today is L&T. And the stock
Hmm.
has been in news, right, over the last few days. Consistent
Large order wins.
order wins. But yesterday, I think it bagged that 15,000 crore rupee order. It was the most important one, given the fact that it's the largest order in its history, being the $4 billion offshore gas project from Qatar Energy, LNG, right? And CLSA today has come out with a note. It has an outperform rating, and target price is at 4,151, which implies a 20% upside from yesterday's close price. In fact, it has said that strong order inflows and resilient capital expenditure in the Gulf region. This is the reason why, of course, the brokerage is positive on this particular stock. It sees this order as a major transformational shift for the company, given the fact that the company now comes, in the same category as top tier international companies in the sector that handle multi-billion dollar projects, right? Aside of that, it has also mentioned that the company is poised to beat its earlier order inflow guidance of 10% to 15% or so. And of course, the strong catalyst going forward would be the rise in core engineering and construction inflow, as well as margin trajectory if it improves.
Yes.
And of course, if any action the company takes to improve the return ratios as well. But I just want to point out that BNP Paribas also came out with a report where the target price is higher, 4,435. They've also dismissed any concerns regarding oil-related slowdown in the Gulf region,
True.
because ordering activity remains solid in excess of $270 billion, and that's expected to remain intact. But the most important part from the BNP Paribas report is the fact that they believe that core EBITDA margin is likely to improve from 8.3% in FY25 to 8.6% in FY26. I think margin was one concern area
Yes.
for L&T.
Yes.
So if that improves, I think that could be a catalyst for the stock going forward. In the last 1 month or so, the stock is already up somewhere around 10%.
Absolutely, and the recent order wins and the focus on overseas markets is something that L&T has been talking about in the last few conference calls as well.
Well, then, those were all the stocks on our radar this afternoon. Of course, it was a good close. And of course, tomorrow marks the end of the financial year as well, given the fact that
Yes.
Monday 31st is a market holiday. So, yes, at least we've ended the March series
True.
on a positive note. And that's something that, something positive to take out from today's session as well. But with that completely timed out on this edition of Closing Bell, thanks a lot for tuning in. But you guys stay tuned to Money Control for all your other news and updates. And I'll see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Thank you.